Perhaps it was the movies that led us to believe we would have intelligent robots as companions. With poor land and sparse rainfall, the Greeks were forced to turn to the Mediterranean. Sunday morning on the CBS network covered the exhibit, as did National Public Radio and many other outlets. The amount of micronutrients required by the body is small, but without them, a body would be unable to sustain life. If you can't hear clearly, then ask the teacher if the volume can be raised. If it cannot, then try to sit closer to the sound source. If you are in sales, ask your sales manager if there is any skill area where you are weak. I walked through the living room several times, purposely blocking his view of the television and secretly flashing him hateful looks. In the typical recognition test, subjects are shown ads one at a time and asked if they have seen them before. He was born in Laval in the Loire Valley and raised in fairly impoverished circumstances. Tiger in a Tropical Storm is the first of the series of jungle scenes for which Rousseau is best known. Bacteria living in shoes and socks metabolize the sweat to form sulfuric acid, which is responsible for foot odor. This is because the sun and air disintegrate or carry away the matter that is giving off the odor. They started to search for ways to help customers pay for such a large purchase. We truly believe that it would not be wise for you to take on other obligations at this time. No longer is my mind filled with the thought of blaming others responsible for my life. It turns out that the black and white stripes show up as gray from a distance, which helps the zebras blend in with the low light. In 2009, 68% of respondents used the car to travel to work, of which only 6% traveled as a passenger. When the study ended, these completely dominated the community, which now consisted of only 8 species. Many teachers have a commitment to quality that takes the form of always pushing away bad writing. We are often told to drive defensively, assume that there's a driver you don't notice who is careless or drunk and may kill you. Some say the risk is low because the house is new. Others, because the house is old. They know that consumers are more likely to notice larger or longer ads than smaller or shorter ones. I'm not saying that you have to reinforce something every time it happens, but that you have to do so consistently. As one effective teacher put it, students like to be praised for their actions, and they never get tired of it as long as it's authentic. The production crew used 20 kilograms of glue every month to stick down the characters to the sets. Whenever you fail at something, ask yourself, was I partly responsible for this? How can I make sure this doesn't happen again? Without the meaning of his work life that he had before retirement, he felt zero drive to do woodworking. Elderly people are much less likely than younger age groups to use the internet. It is also common for people to lose their manual dexterity with age, making it difficult to use keyboards or mice. The point is to connect people with you and make them feel like they are important to you. They'll say, "My leader cares, and I will follow him up whatever hill he takes me on." It appears that all you need to do is to remind the customers of your existence. Honeybees must pollinate more than 30% of the food consumed in the United States or the plant simply will not grow. Soaked in water and wrapped around meats, slippery elm bark slow down spoilage in the days before refrigeration. What better way to gain that trust and respect than by taking the time and energy to learn someone else's language? They asked foster parents May and Joe Lemke if they would take Leslie home and care for him until he died. As she sang, She held her cheek next to Leslie, hoping he might learn that his mouth could make sounds. Victimized by the stressful world they live in, many people have accepted stress as a necessary component of their job. It was the men who accumulated possessions through trade and gained prestige by returning triumphantly with prisoners of war. If stored in an atmosphere unaffected by swings in temperature and humidity, sugar has an unlimited shelf life. Even exposure to high humidity for a few days will allow sugar to absorb enough moisture to promote spoilage and mold growth. The Galapagos Islands are one of the places in the world where it's easy to touch the theory of evolution with our hands. Norse myths provided a much more complete picture of the environment than did their Greek counterparts. The Scandinavians, too, chose the heavens as the location for Asgard, the home of their gods. This belief was reinforced by the early observation that when the heart stopped beating, life stopped, and the body became cold. Not until the 18th century did scientists learn that the brain, not the heart, determines thoughts, emotions, movements, and so on. Although forests have grown again since the turn of the 20th century, they are mostly second or third growth forests. Many of these forests are timber farms growing only one species of commercially valuable tree. Taxes grew so high that many landowners abandoned their farms, causing food production to fall. The environmental chaos that ensued is widely believed to have led to the extinction of the dinosaurs. Very often it is non-co-resident grandmothers who are engaged as either primary or backup caregivers for grandchildren. In the past, sailboats were built to perfection so that seafarers would be able to survive harsh weather conditions. Competitions with only 1 to 2 member teams involve sailing around the world, anchoring at various countries along the way. The social welfare guaranteed to every suite is far higher than that found in most countries. A way to get things done more efficiently and get better results is to do the right thing at the right time of day. Empower people by letting them know that you believe in them and allowing them to take action. Trusting people and empowering them also allows you to focus on the things you need to accomplish. Doing the right thing means thinking about everybody else, using the emotional brain to mirror the emotions of strangers. Trust is fostered by the fact that we come to expect and rely on the mutuality of response. These pictures cannot tell us exactly what the dance movements looked like or what the music sounded like. When defects are produced, a company must either correct the problem or be willing to accept the annoyance or loss of a customer. How many things can you think of that would be different if there were no writing? Don't let those old, incorrect beliefs persuade you to censor healthy recipes, or you'll be losing out on solid nutrition. Nuts are very nutritious and supply for a given weight twice more protein than any other food product. Cruel though the Mongols were, none were as barbarous as the great Mongol ruler, Tamerlane. China and Russia became poor, the Muslim world was in turmoil, and even European countries like Poland and Serbia suffered greatly. Many experiences are ambiguous enough that we aren't completely sure what to make of them. This fine-tuning, in turn, helps people decide whether some sort of action is called for. This causes us to avoid, resist and, if necessary, forcibly reject any idea that threatens our beliefs. This is why it is important, from time to time, to challenge our beliefs to see if we may be operating from the wrong viewpoint. We often try to get rid of them, but the belief that we can banish dark sides is unrealistic and inauthentic. As to recall what they had read, they remembered the description as more positive than it was. No one has a right to live precisely as they wish. No one has a right to a life dedicated to violence, theft, cruelty, or murder. While I have no record of a serial number, I would venture to say that she purchased it around 1984. As your weight shifts forward, a microprocessor determines when to release the stored energy to help the toe push off. Actually, protein is considered one of the most abundant substances found in our bodies and is second only to water. Protein molecules are made up of organic compounds called amino acids, which create a structure resembling long, sphere-like chains. As children reach adolescence, they can begin to establish social outlets which may be quite separate from the lives of their parents. Because of this processing, the body loses some of the valuable vitamins it might have gained from wheat and flour. Instead, he or she lends his or her know-how and expertise to help run the customer's business. Once a meeting has begun, variables to achieving success have already been sharply reduced. That means envisioning likely questions and problems so that you can deal with them, if possible, in advance. The approach most consistent with culturally responsive teaching is to first accept the dialect and then build on it. More significantly, such early criticism foreshadows the importance that we now attach to an original, instantly recognizable artistic style. Nor is it the case that cues guarantee identical outcomes to everyone who stands in line. Yet milk does contain extra large doses of one ingredient, which is calcium, a mineral the body uses to build, maintain, and repair its bones. Sometimes the changes will be so different from the melody that it's hard to tell how they came from it. Then the musicians will do variations on the melody, playing the melody slightly differently each time, adding different things. Those who felt this way usually had the racist idea that Africans and Asians were inferior to Europeans. In one study, people read an identical description of a man injured in a robbery. If we could prevent the rooster from crowing, we would observe that the sun still rises. We tend to perceive the door of a classroom as rectangular no matter from which angle it is viewed. "58% of the preschool children describe the fictitious event as if it had happened. More telling was that 27% of the children, when told their memory was false, claimed that they remembered the event. In case you failed, you have to take the exam again after the Christmas holidays. Then realize that we live in a universe that has several 100,000 million galaxies. Developing antennae for the trends that have yet to crest takes work and study, as well as the flexibility to adapt to those trends. Instead of staying sentimentally attached to some fashion of days gone by, she was able to sense a rising trend and go with it. Leadership is all about placing people in the right place so they can be successful. It's what we choose to think and what we choose to do that are most important.